Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome this evening for the topic of discussion emotional intelligence and mental health, mental well being for everyone. Uh, in today's times, when there is so much of uncertainty all around us, mental health has become all the more a priority for everyone in the society. And May being a mental health month, GMHA has organized this special webinar so as to create more awareness on mental health and how emotional intelligence can help being mentally stable and also grow and develop our mental capabilities as a holistic person to proceed further in these situations. Firstly, I would like to warmly welcome all our speakers for today, Dr. Ajit Singh, Dr. Faisal Sheikh, Ms. Mansi Dholakia, Dr. Yogesh Raut, Rajeshwari Ghosh, Dr. Sonakshi Royala, and our beautiful and wonderful moderators, Sonali Mangal and Mr. Pramod Kumar Rajput. A very warm welcome to all of you. Uh, Before we begin, I would just like to briefly tell about that GMHA, the Global Mental Health Association, USA, has been taking mental health very seriously. And as a part of our mental health awareness campaigns and emotional intelligence, we have been conducting sessions across colleges and universities throughout India. We have almost covered almost 18 to 20 webinars in the past one and a half month itself and addressed almost 10,000 students across India to develop an awareness in mental health. Also, taking into consideration the current situation that India is struggling with, GMHA has taken its steps to do a bit and give back to the society, to the community. And we have been working non-stop each day, every day. All our volunteers are on the ground working to provide food, cooked food, as well as food supplies to many underprivileged families on the streets of Delhi. Not just food, but we have also been supplying water to them. And just for the same initiative, we have recently started off a fundraiser on keto. I'll be posting the link for the same in the chats, and please, I would request you to please support us in this noble cause for humanity. And I would like to thank Ms. Mansi Dholakia, CEO GMHA, for her empathetic support and her leadership through all these things and the initiatives that GMHA has been doing. Along with this on ground support, we are also running an Instagram page for the support and verification of the leads that come through. We also have a mental health helpline, which is a 24-hour helpline, uh, an email support where our psychologists reply to any emails that come through and provide anxiety support for anxiety, depression, dealing with loss, and any mental health support that is required to anybody who writes to us. I'll be sharing all these details in the chat as we as we proceed further. And with this, I would again welcome all of you to this beautiful seminar, and I hope that you are all excited for the discussion and taking up the takeaways as I am. With this, I would like to hand over to Sonali Mangal, who is our psychologist with GMHA, to take it further.
Hi everyone, thank you Gayatri, and once again a very warm welcome to all the speakers on the forum. So little introduction about myself. I'm a counseling psychologist with work experience with few NGOs, corporates, and management institutes. I'm equipped with the tools like CBT, RECBT, NLP, etc. And I'm really very proud to be a part of this GMHA forum, which is working wonderfully in spreading the emotional intelligence awareness, and as well as also building the emotional intelligence skills among various schools, universities, and corporates, which is very much basic need for the mental well-being for our society. So now I would like to request Dr. Ajit Singh, the CEO, co-founder of Climate Research Solution, to say a few words about himself.
Yes, so thank you very much. Hello and good evening, everyone. Again, first, I would like to thank GMHA and Ms. Mansi for inviting me to such an eminent panel. I would also like to express my gratitude to all the expert panelists and today's moderator, Mr. Pramod Kumar Rajput, sir, and Ms. Sonali. Thank you very much. And Ms. Mansi, you are doing an amazing job. You are, feeding the people who are on the roads and who do not have the resources in this COVID crisis. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you very much. I would like to thank you again from that side also. And since I have come to know about GMHA, it's about I think 2 months when we had first virtual meeting with Ms. Mansi. I'm following her on her LinkedIn page, and every day at least one or two posts I'm seeing from her, and all the posts are very inspiring and very informative. So yes, thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm working as scientist C at ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, and I'm working here at Department of Medicine and Department of Cardiology at Kasturba Medical College, Manipal itself. And we are running one more startup, that is CleanMed Research Solutions, and I'm working as National Director for the research at World Youth Heart Federation as well. So that's my short introduction, and I'm a learner. I'm always learning from my students, from my colleagues, from my people, whether at every platform, wherever I'm getting a chance, I'm trying to learn from everywhere. Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you, Dr. Oji. Now, may I request Dr. Faisal Sheikh, founder at Bebel, consultant psychiatrist, NHS UK, to say a few words about yourself, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Sonali. It's my pleasure to be invited to this esteemed panel. I feel very humbled and very honored. I'm grateful to Mansi for this invitation. And I'm also honored to be amongst very esteemed colleagues. I'm here to learn as well as much as contribute. So a bit about myself, as you rightly introduced me, I'm a practicing consultant psychiatrist in the UK National Health Service. I've been consultant for the last 14 years, and I moved to the UK about 20 years ago, where I trained as a psychiatrist. I'm originally from Pakistan, but I was born and brought up in Saudi Arabia, so I have moved between different cultures. So I've got that global DNA in me, and that's where I see the work that GMHA does at a global level, very inspiring and very humbling indeed. And I, like Dr. Ajit, I follow Mansi on LinkedIn, and I'm always inspired by the dedication, by the passion that she shows. So I'm part of that mission. So the other thing I do, apart from my work as a psychiatrist, in the last couple of years, I've founded a startup called Babel, which we are still in the early stages of putting together and coming up with what we call a minimum viable product. So essentially, Babel is a social platform that will enable a community of users who can establish random anonymous brief companionships amongst each other. The idea is to prevent loneliness from becoming the problem that it is, and then it leads on to other problems, including major mental disorders. So that's been my side hustle, so to speak, the last 2 years. And again, on that front, I think there is a natural alliance between what I'm doing and the work that GMHA has been doing. Um, so that's my other endeavor these days. So thank you very much on that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faisal. Now, I would like to request Dr. Yogesh Rao, who is mindset coach and innovation coach at Accenture, to please kindly introduce yourself to the forum.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are safe, your family members are safe. Just a couple of minutes back, I received a very unfortunate news that one of my colleagues in my previous organizations passed away because of COVID. So I'm No, I'm kind of disturbed at this juncture, but I think all of us are. Every single day comes with some other news, and I think uh, when I see the work being done by Mansi and all the team members, I think those are the moments which keep me inspiring, which keeps me going, seeing that yes, there are a lot of amazing people, awesome people on this planet. Uh, Little about me. Uh, I have about two decades of experience. I have been into sales, I've been into marketing, I've been also being a faculty for management students. So speaking to students and being with them, learning from them is my passion. Last couple of years, 4 years to be precise, I've been working with an organization which is called as Accenture, and primarily I'm into creativity and innovation. So I'm a coach wherein I've been assigned with making sure that the India geography, people in India geography, which is something like about 2 lakh people, are being more creative and more innovative. Uh, at Accenture, apart from that, there are a few other things that I do. I'm a mental wellness advocate, a very huge initiative here at Accenture, and it has nothing to do with pandemic. It has been there for a long time, and I think I'm very passionate about that. And uh, you know, uh, very similar to what all of us have been talking about. So that's a small introduction about me, and I'm and humbled, and thank you, Manasi, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this amazing August gathering. Thank you.
To Dr. Yogeshwar. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rajeshwari Ghosh, founder at Quantum Holistic, to kindly share a few words about yourself. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Is that okay? Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Mansi, and I'm really grateful to be part of this esteemed panel. I really appreciate for being over here. Um, the work we are doing right now, what Mansi is doing, and our contributions, I think it creates that energy which needs to be circulated in the universe today. We need joy, we need empathy, we need a lot of love, care, compassion to bring about that balance. So that's exactly what I do for a living right now. I'm a founder at Quantum Holistic. So right now my work is based on quantum paradigm, which is basically on spiritual. Emotional intelligence is one part of it, because without emotional intelligence, you cannot achieve spiritual intelligence. So what I do, I write on spiritual intelligence from real life doing also right now. I'm collecting real life stories from real heroes in COVID pandemic right now. So that's the initiative I have taken. And I bring out these stories and share with everyone, see how leadership is not just about a title. Leadership is about doing the right things right in the right way. It is about our principles and the values and living with the virtues. Now, I worked in predominantly in the Newtonian world. I come from a Wall Street background, heavily finance driven, where I have to achieve numbers. Then my last role in corporate world was an associate director in KPMG India. I worked in PwC also. Again, extremely numbers driven, where you have to get your clients, build a practice from the scratch. Many of you, one of you is from Accenture, so you can relate to that environment. So it's high stress, high pressure kind of job, where you are almost on the toes all the time. So at that time, I realized whether this is something I want to do for the rest of my life or not. See, I left home when I was 18. I lived in US for 11 years and I worked in multiple geographies and multiple countries. I met people from more than 120 countries around the world. I did publish a book which is widely read for almost in 5-6 countries. So I could not write for many years because those emotions and the flow would just not go through me. So then I needed to do something about it. So 3 years back, I came back to Kolkata for personal reasons. And I wanted to do something where I can have more balance in my life because there was absolutely no balance. And what I'm doing currently is purely based on the work of my grandfather who wrote Raj Rajeshwari. It is basically the universal and eternal principles of life, and based on which how we can develop a system. So it's not man-made. It's based on our energy and consciousness. It's you can touch upon I'm doing research on Vedas, the Upanishads, Sufism, Kabbalah, all the esoteric part of our faith, not the exoteric, the esoteric part, the internal part of it. So a lot of yogic system which I'm practicing for last 25 years, I'm putting this out there, how people can benefit it right now and bringing more harmony, more balance in their everyday life. So one thing I want to point it out over here, what I do for living is I practice it myself and I go through the pain points and the suffering, and then I preach it to the world. So without practicing it, I won't preach it. So when people tell me with one word, I can more or less figure out where their consciousness level are. So I am again working on it, and this is what I'm passionate and excited about it, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm very happy about it that ultimately I found my calling. So that took me good 37 years. I'm 41 years old. That took me good 37 years, but it has a lot to do because of my upbringing in my family, which is old culture. Spiritual intelligence was embedded all throughout. And then I went to a Christian college, spent time at Buddhist monasteries, have friends from Sufi culture. So all of these are instrumental for bringing this out in the world for me. So I'm thankful to the universe for making me the instrument of change through my own life. So thank you once again, everyone, for having me over here and for giving me this opportunity to contribute my experiences. And I'm also looking forward to learn from all of you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ms. Rajeshwari. Now I would like to call Dr. Sonakshi Ruhela, Associate Registrar, Amity University, Dubai, to introduce herself to the forum.
Thank you, Sonali. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. A very good evening, everyone. It is lovely to, be a part of the gang here. I see that there are learners and then there are sufferers and there are learners and then more sufferers. So it's beautiful to see. Very modestly, I'm just an associate registrar for Amity University, Dubai. Started my career 12 years back with Amity University, was conceived by them. I love psychology. That's all that I know. Very passionate about it. By profession, I'm also a marital and family therapist. Have worked in the area of relationships over 12 years. Very scared of the fellow psychiatrist sitting here. Looks like he's staring at me, Dr. Faisal. It's always nicer and it's always good to meet people and learn from them. I heard Dr. Ajit say that he's a learner, and that is how I immediately connected with him. So yeah, very briefly, I work with a university. My career has been conceived by a university 12 years back. They call me walkie-talkie psychoeducator. I can catch hold of anybody in the corridors and start talking about some psychological concept that applies. My current favorite is a psychological ownership, trying to write a little about it. I've written a book called Counseling Interventions, on counseling interventions, basically for beginners. Have been in UAE for about 5 years plus, love the culture here. I love the fact that there is a huge need for mental health here. And also very, very happy to connect with Mansi, who has further connected me with all of you, because I believe every dialogue is important for creating change. So thank you so much, everybody, and I hope to learn a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sonakshi. Now is the turn of our very own Ms. Mansi Dholakia, CEO, GMH and founder GMHA, also a United Nations speaker. Kindly say a few words about yourself, Mansi ma'am.
Hi, Sonali. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome to all the esteemed speakers here today. I'm so happy to see such a beautiful panel put together. The most amazing thing is, whenever I reach out to somebody saying that, here, I'm doing something, so why don't you join me? Never have I ever heard a no. And I think that in itself is just fantastic. So applause to all you guys. Whenever I reach out to anyone, it just makes me so happy. I cannot express. It's fantastic. To introduce myself, I think all you guys have done my introduction already. So I don't think I need to introduce myself further here. But very humbly, I run GMHA platform. It's Global Mental Health Association. I'm the founder and CEO. And recently we have been, running a few humanitarian causes for which we ask for support, for which we try and ask you guys out there, to reach out to the public, to reach out to more people. It's not about individual contribution. When we run such huge humanitarian causes, it's not about one person's contribution. It's not in one person's hand to kind of make a huge difference in the society. So I think it's the contribution of an entire society come together, which can empower societies further. So that is the whole idea behind all such type of causes or mission that we run right now. And yes, I mean, apart from this, I'm a emotional intelligence coach. So we are trying to bring emotional intelligence to schools and universities across India. And like Gayatri said in her, welcome speech, that we have addressed more than 10,000 students in past few months, which is, again, a huge student empowerment initiative in itself. So with all of these, going forward, I would ask individually you guys as well to support us wherever you see yourselves to fit in. I would love it if you guys can come forward and tell me that, Mansi, this is, what we can do maybe together. I'm always up for collaboration, innovation, and, trying to do things together, because I think together we can do a lot more to make a difference in the society. And my only vision, mission, whatever you want to call it, is to empower societies, to empower youth in a longer run. Whenever we guys leave from here physically, there should be something that we have contributed to societies that can leave behind an impact. And I think that only makes the entire difference. So thank you all very much for being here today. And thank you, Sonali. You're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you, Mansi. So now thank you to all the esteemed speakers for sharing your brief introductions. And now it's over to Mr. Pramod Kumar Rajput, who is Senior Vice President, VH, Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited. So sir, kindly please introduce yourself as well and then take it forward.
Thank you so much. Very, very good evening to all of you, and very happy to be a part of such a wonderful forum where I always feel GMHA is adding a lot of the things in the human's mind and helping many people to build their emotional stability. So I always feel blessed that yes, I am also a part of GMHA, and with this beautiful session, further I am going to enrich my learning so that it can be given back to the society. I fully agree about what she said about it, that their vision and mission is to empowering youth. The same way, I also feel like empowering the youth, because that is the thing which we have learned while working in the pharmaceutical industry from last 39 years, that today the youth is the youth is the real thing for the nation, because our youth is going to make us pride, not only for the nation, but for the entire world. And due to this COVID, we have seen a lot of the uncertainty. So that's why we call it as a VUCA world. So in this uncertainty, how we are going to help the people and help to have the same happiness in their heart and mind. I think that is the basic thing which we are doing it. And I'm so happy that I am a part of GMHA. Once again, I'm repeating it, right on the sake of, not sake of repeating, but truly I'm telling you that it is giving me a lot of happiness, the strength that yes, something I am able to contribute wherever I am a part of this. With this, I like to go directly with the questions with our the eminent panelists, which is just writing about good things which all the panelists, all the speakers have written. I mean, they spoke about them. So small things I have picked it up. So first, my question, I'll go to the one of the smiling speaker, right? You can find it out who is the smiling speaker. The most smiling speaker, of course, is Dr. Ajit Singh, right? So his smile says that he is going to be the first person who is going to speak about it, right? So from KMC Manipal, and very happy, Dr. Ajit Singh, after seeing you one-to-one on face and able to see that lot many good things which you are doing it. So I am now banging the first question to you to learn from you, because though you are a learner, I am also a learner. We all are a learner, because everybody is going to contribute in the learning segment, and we are going to learn from each other, because learning is one thing which never stops. I always say that due to this COVID, all mandir, all masjid, all the religious place, all party, all going, meeting friends, everything has stopped. But the only one thing has not stopped, which was the learning part. Learning was abundantly available. So let us learn. So my first question to you, Dr. Ajit, is, Dr. Singh, you have worked in the field of improving cardiovascular health, which you said just now. So the leading cause of the morbidity and the death. So it is related to the acute stress and unhealthy lifestyle, which everybody knows about it also as well. How can such chronic conditions be dealt with the enhance one's physical and mental health? So unmute, sir. Unmute yourself, please.
Yes, thank you
Yeah.
very much, sir, for a nice introduction, and having you here as a moderator. Thank you very much. So this is a very technical question, but theme of today's webinar is mental well-being. So I will try to associate both the things here through this question. So yes, you are absolutely right. Cardiovascular problems are currently associated with the second highest number of deaths in India. 1 in 4 deaths in India is now because of heart diseases, and this is the fact that most of these problems are developing by a sedentary lifestyle, unhealthy diets, unnecessary workload, anxiety, and stress in young adults. As we are talking about youth, so previously we knew heart attack as a problem of older people, but now it's common to see many young patients visiting the emergency room with such conditions. So, these cardiovascular problems are, it can be easily avoided by adopting few simple steps in our lifestyle, like a 30 minutes walk, brisk walk every day, at least 3 color vegetables or fruit in your lunch. So I'll connect everything. At least 3 color vegetables, vegetables or fruits in your, in your lunch, and these colors could be green, red, and yellow. So why green? Because green color vegetables and fruits are rich in vitamin A and K, and these are also having a lot of fibers, magnesium, iron, and potassium. And then if you go to the red color, it is these fruits and vegetables are rich in vitamin A and vitamin C. That is 25% of daily need we can cover from the red color vegetables or fruits. And then yellow and orange color are vitamin C and vitamin B, calcium and potassium, definitely. So why I'm describing these things about diet? Now I'll correlate. So makes your gut healthy, and it triggers your happy hormones, dopamine and oxytocin. Okay, and it has a huge impact on your mental health. So a healthy diet works in controlling cardiovascular problems on both the sides. So it's a win-win situation for us, for our mental health, even for our physical health, right? And apart from it, yoga and meditation are something very effective in delaying your heart problems. You can go for 20 to 30 minutes yoga or meditation, or if we say the simple pranayam this can improve your lungs, and this can improve your heart capacity to work efficiently. So we all know, as we are talking about youth, our youth is our future. So if our youth is healthy, our future will be healthy and progressive, right? So I belong to a village in UP, and I have seen my grandparents and the people of that age are very strong and away from many diseases. That we can see in our generations easily, right? In our generation, we can see the infectious diseases we can catch infections easily, and we get heart problems easily. But their diet, our elder people's diet and happiness is still unbeatable. If we have someone with us, why I have added the word happiness here, because the people now are not being satisfied easily in aspect of their wealth, in aspect of their fame, and we say about their success. So according to my theory, I don't think there is a limit for success in your life if you are really enthusiastic. But there are the levels you just want to achieve one after one in your to get the success. So I feel happiness is all about satisfaction. If you are satisfied with your goals and achievements, you can think even further for the success. And I don't believe in the word success. Actually, I believe in the achievement, and there that achievements you can get at every level of success. So be happy whatever you're achieving at every level. I mean, you have to be satisfied at every level whatever you are achieving in your life. So that will give you the mental peace, that will be good for your mental health, for your mental health, mental well-being, and your physical health as well. I would not go so long, just one more minute. And last message to our young friends, that unnecessary stresses and feeling of over responsibilities, you know over responsibilities. Why I'm telling, because people are just feeling themselves responsible for everything. So you have to get rid of that. You have to prioritize your responsibilities, right? You have to prioritize your workload, and then you have to work ahead. So these things are actually degrading our mental and physical health both. So better get some time for this body to rejuvenate every day, not monthly, every day. Don't run behind that word, and just be happy and work efficiently. By this, I will end my comment. Thank you very much for listening patiently. Thank you very much. So I'll just finish
Thank
my.
you. Thank you, Dr. Ajit. You have blended it very well. You said about as a cardiologist, right, and also as a normal person, that what has to be taken, right? A beautiful blend. And I take out the message that the work-life balance, right? It is very,
Yes.
very important for any person, right? That's what
Yes.
the way you said it. You also said it like everybody speak about it, that you have to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
Either in the term of the brisk walk you do, or you're taking your meals, right? If it is available, it is
True.
depends upon the availability, the three color meals and all. And the last one thing which you said about the mental strength, you said that start celebrating the smallest moment as in happiness
Yes.
moment.
True.
So if you start celebrating that beautiful moments like which are there in your life, start celebrating it, all means the mental happiness is going to happen and the youth will be very happy. Am I right, Dr. Ajit? This
Yes,
is
sir.
3 4 points which I have grabbed from your
Definitely, sir.
beautiful way of telling the things.
Very
Thank you
true.
so much, Dr. Ajit. So
Thank
now
you.
I will move to our second important speaker, Dr. Yogesh Raut. Dr. Yogesh sir, are you here, sir? Yeah.
Yes, yes, I am.
So first of all, Dr. Yogesh, from the on behalf of GMHA, we really convey our deepest condolence on the sad demise of your very close friend. So let us pray so that they should be good, fine, and that the God should give them the strength, right, to take care of the family and you also as the great friend of the person, right? And I'm sure that it will. Yeah, you want to say something? Then I'll ask question.
No, no, thank you for that. And I think last few days, I think that is happening with all of us. That every now and then we receive some message either of a friend, someone that someone that you have, had food and you have had shared jokes. So I think very disturbing. But then I think that is where mental wellness and everything plays a very important part. And as Dr. Ajit correctly mentioned that the mind and the body are correlated. So we have to take care of our body, we have to take care of our mind, and I think that is the need of the hour, and we have now understood that to a great extent now.
Thank you, Dr. Raut. I think you have hit the bullseye because the right way of putting the thing. Yeah, you want to say something? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was saying that you have hit the bullseye because that said, kid, after seeing such type of the things, and it's the right time to talk on this beautiful seminar which we are having on the importance of the emotional intelligence for the mental well-being, not only for the youth, but for every person now, because every person is getting affected with this. How to come out with this beautiful, this bad situation toward the positive situation, negative situation to the positive situation. So with this, I'd like to ask one of the very important question from you, that having been in the profession, because I was listening that you are a part of the profession, you are a part of this journey of the things. So training many you have trained many management professionals are there, and for innovation, creativity and all. So please, can you shed some light now on the impact of incorporating a corporate emotional intelligence model on the performance and the job satisfaction of employees in an organization? Because just now what had happened with you, it would had happened with many of them, and it may happen with many of them. So your words will be like a very true, which is coming out, which is really coming from your heart, because just few hours or few minutes back, you have felt this thing. So I'd like to know, the entire team is like to know from you. Dr. Yogesh, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. And I think when we talk about emotional intelligence, or when we talk about mental wellness, I think that that's something that I'm passionate about, and that is also my role as well. So as I mentioned earlier in my small brief, that it is something that that is not really associated with COVID, that has been there for a long time. The organization that I have been part of, it's like a very big initiative. So when it comes to emotional intelligence, also called as emotional quotient, and few other things, I think it has been there for a long time, particularly in organizations. Uh, which are global organizations. I think they were the ones who first appreciated the importance of EQ. Organizations, Indian organizations, particularly in the old days, good old days, I think the only or the only thing that mattered in those days was IQ. And I think no one even knew about EQ and IQ. And thankfully, Daniel Goleman came up with that amazing book, I think somewhere around 1995. And we read about it, and we felt that this is something that is going to help us not only in our personal, in our professional life, but in our personal life as well. And that is something that I'm doing day in and day out with employees, with students, because prior to joining Accenture as a coach, I've been a faculty for students, management students, about 8 long years, wherein I have taught hundreds and thousands of students who are even today connected with me. And I've been working with them as in terms of grief counseling and various other things. So it is not only limited to guiding them in terms of their career, what jobs, and what is happening in the professional front, but in the last few months, I've been also associated with them in terms of helping them with respect to their what is happening in their personal space. Coming back to how EQ or EI is helping with respect to people being happy on the job, people being performing good. So I think when we talk about people with high EI or high EQ, at my organizations, we have made it kind of an integral part of people who want to progress in their career. So it is not that it is something that is meant only for the leadership folks, senior folks, but it is meant for every single person who joins this particular organization. And we very forcefully make everyone aware that if you want to grow in your career, in your personal space, EQ is something that is very important. And there are a lot of training programs, various initiatives that we learn, some of the that we implement, and some of the initiatives I am part of. And we have realized that people who have high EQ, they're better in decision making, they are better with problem solving, they are able to keep cool under pressure, they are able to resolve conflicts. Very important, they are able to empathize. Okay, empathize with the team members, empathize with leadership, empathize with clients. Our organization has presence in 120 countries, and we have clients in 180 countries. So truly a global organization. So empathy is something that really helps all the employees here. Also, people with high EQ, they are good with listening, they are good with reflecting, and they respond to constructive criticism in a much better way. And this is something that we have found as an organization. And obviously, when we talk about mental wellness, I think the initiatives that we are, I think they are the best in the world in terms of grief counseling, in terms of 24/7 helpline service, similar to what Mansi is working upon. And there are various other initiatives just to make sure that in these difficult times, all of us stay together, all of us bind together, and we become more human. And by doing that, we are not only performing better in our professional lives, but we are growing as individuals as well. And I think these two worlds have to be gelled together. So gone are the days when we said my professional life is different from my personal life. That distinction does not any longer stay true. What we have to make sure is that we are human beings, and we have to combine these two worlds, and that should be done in a very seamless way. Because if you're good in your professional life, you will be good in your personal life, and it holds true vice versa as well. And that's the reason that we have to now look at employees. Organizations have to look at employees not as employees who will be working for you 9 to 5, but looking at their entire heart, mind, and soul. And there is an initiative that we run here at Accenture, which is called as bringing yourself to the organization, which means when you come to the organization, when you come to the work, you bring your entire self and not just your brain or some of the skills. So you have to bring yourself when you come to work, so that when you bring in yourself, you are able to give the best of the performance. And the best of the performance means growth not only for the individual, growth for the team, growth for the organization. And it means that we are making this world a much better place. So I think yeah, there are a few more things that I would like to add, but I think considering time constraint, I would like to stop here. But there are a few links that I would like to share with Manasi, and maybe she can socialize with the larger audience here.
Fantastic, Dr. Yogesh. I was just, when the way you were talking, I was just seeing that how in our organization also we are taking care for the people, which is very important. And the way that you have given the example of Daniel Goleman, the book which was written on 1995, is very true, because IQ is now there in any of the youngsters who are coming from any of the institute, either they are the management people or from the technology and all. They are coming with the IQ, but the EQ there, because none of the management school or none of the places they give the training of EQ, which is very important. Today, even I was talking to one of the college, they said that there's no certification course of EQ. But when you come and join the organization, the expectation of the organization is very high. So at that time, there is a mismatch happens, right? And if we are able to imbibe the youngsters, right, to have that EQ level, EI level, and at the same time to the officials also who are taking them, so I think this will be a good collaboration will happen. Then what you said, the people should bring them to the organization. So that will be always with the person will be coming with a pleasure, not with a pressure, right? So that should not be a 9 to 5 job. It will be that a job which has to be completed. There is no time limit will be there. A person can complete in 5 hours of time. So it is the intensity and the effectivity of the person is going to improve. That's what you said about it very well. You also said very well that resilience. So when the people have been right ignited or talking about the things, then the resilience levels goes up. When the resilience levels goes up, your effectivity of the work goes up. Fantastic, you said, doctor, and compassion and empathy, which the way you said it. Yeah. You want to say, doctor?
One small thing that I would like to add. So tomorrow I'm going to conduct sessions for MBA students who are joining Accenture. So they just joined on Friday, and tomorrow, which is Monday, I'm going to conduct a session. So I think there are 200 students that I'm going to speak to tomorrow. And I think what I'm going to basically talk about is not technology, because they come from the best B schools of this country. And there is nothing that I can teach them in terms of technology, because they are the best, they are the best of the best. So there is nothing for me to offer in terms of technology. They already know about it, and in fact, they know more about it. But what I'm going to talk about is empathy, bringing their whole self to work, and those are the things that I'm going to talk about starting from tomorrow. 200 young, energetic MBA graduates from one of the best, B schools of this country, the best of the best. And I think that brings more responsibility to me as a coach, as a trainer, that I have to make sure that all these amazing guys who are extremely good with IQ, no doubt about that, but they also understand the importance of EI and EQ. And I think this has to become an integral part of the course curriculum that we have here in India. And I think, unfortunately, that is something that I was expecting to happen, not yet happened. So I think Manasi has to really put in more efforts on that area. And maybe ICT should also work upon that. Dr. Anil Shahastra Buddhe, who currently leads AICT, I'm a student. He was a director here at College of Engineering, Pune, where I studied. So sir has now gone to AICT, and I'm sure that he will be, have something in his mind in terms of having some radical changes in the educational system. With that, thank you, and sorry for taking more time.
No, you said this because it is very important, right? And I'm sure the people who are listening this, right, apart from our group who is here, they will be able to further add a lot of value in that. But at the same time, all the organization should be taking care, because EI is very important. And also the organization should have the culture like yours, like the people as a coach, they should also ensure that it should be the both ends meet. It is not only the youngster, but the people who work also, they also understand and they also respect that part. And in the national education policy, I think GMHA is doing lot many things and all putting the things very well. And I'm sure the things are going to add a lot of value. Yes, Dr. Yogesh, please tell.
Yeah, I think Manasa is doing good work. So yeah.
That's what I said. It is the leadership, and then GMHA full, because which is very, very important, right? So that 100% lot of work is there, but only one cannot move the entire thing, because we all have to join together, right? And to make the things happen, because it's a 135 crore population is there, which requires a lot of effort to make the things happen. And such small efforts is going to really make and add lot many things. So thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh, for have your valuable interaction and valuable suggestion, and what you said, you are doing it also. Now I'm coming to the person who always says that first I practice and then I preach. So I was listening very carefully that the right way, and the lot of stories through the storytelling and all, because that is a new way. Because if you start telling about the stories, if you talk about the things, if you apply on yourself and then you tell to the other person, you understand where the shoe pinches, where the requirement is. So I will ask this my question to Madam Rajeshwari Ghosh. Madam Ghosh, you are one of the successful founder of a leadership and the management consultancy, and its core belief in the spirituality, which you said just now also, with a background in the finance and having worked and trained professional in the corporate sector. How do you think one can upskill oneself to climb the career ladder using emotional and spiritual intelligence, both as a blend? Why I'm asking this question? Because you said that first you practice it and then only you preach it. So now over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajput. I will give you with real life examples. All right, because I said so, first I practice, then I preach. All right, so quantum paradigm and Newtonian paradigm are two different worldviews. In Newtonian paradigm, what we are living almost for good 200 years, and broadly speaking, almost 2000 years. That's right, 2000 years. where it is much more linear and based on social constructs. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, please let me know. I will put it in much more simpler words. Social constructs means based on religion, class, gender, race, color, creed, religion, anything which is man-made, right? Which has a linear thinking. If the person is this, then I can predict this person like this. So it's a linear logical thinking, analytical thinking, which is more the right bent kind of thinking. Now our education system is also based on that right now. So what is happening with that? We are not cultivating a part of ourselves, which is very much inherent of who we are as individuals and as subjects. So what part is that? We are cultivating the objective view. For example, I have studied finance, unfortunately, the Newtonian finance, right? So I worked in Wall Street, I worked in mortgage banking. So I knew how the processes work, how it is supposed to work. So somebody has outlined it, we have accepted it, and I have done that work. It does not require me to put my emotional content or my spiritual content where I am questioning the moral and the ethical implications of that in the society and community at large, right? So in Newtonian paradigm, we are talking about a mechanistic, rational, traditional view based on social constructs and which primarily based on the objective mindset. So that's what we are seeing today in our society, and that is the implications of that. Because when we think about a person with a certain title, I also held a title of an associate director, people have all kinds of associations with that. But what I keep telling people, I am much more than my title. My title gives me only shows a part of me. It's not everything. Who I am, what I do, who the people I associate with and what I have are all different things. But we should not get our strength from the title we hold, the social associations we have, the academic achievements we do, or the professional qualifications we have. We have to be someone who do not have a title can still hold a ground. And when someone can hold the ground, when the person does not have all of these, then we come to quantum paradigm, which is holistic in nature and which comprises and acknowledges the soul, the mind, and the heart. So here we have to bring more policy changes where our community and in our organizations, we can accommodate policies which is more heart-centric in nature. So now I have given you the background of the quantum and the Newtonian paradigm. Quantum paradigm, again, it's perfect for the VUCA world. It is meant for the VUCA world. And it is the necessity of the VUCA world. And it starts from emotional intelligence. The integral part of emotional intelligence is building self-awareness. I'm doing this for last 25 years. So I can say it with conviction, not confidence, with conviction from inside out. And meditative writing is one such technique, how we can build much more and more self-awareness. So that's why I'm a writer with a purpose. Now, how can we apply this in our workplace? Now, if we are talking about Newtonian paradigm, you mentioned the word career ladder. In Newtonian paradigm, career ladder can be, we can still use the word because we are talking about one thing leads to another. We are only talking about going up. Now, a lot of organizations have high stress zone. I worked in some of those organizations 24/7, pressure, a lot of demands, bosses which are hard to difficult to manage. These are real life situations. So over there, if the people cannot align with the culture of the organization, their spiritual intelligence can help them float. Now, these are actionable points I'm saying. Why they are doing it, why they have the job? Because they have to support a family. They may love the job, they may not see the organization as very ethical or moral, but they can still be happy with the job they do. They are contributing to a greater cause, because if there is unemployment, then he's another person who is again out in the job market looking for jobs. So that can be a spiritual intelligence, which is very personal in nature. The organization may or may not have that. Emotional intelligence in Newtonian paradigm, emotional intelligence, through our self-awareness, once we grow in our own self-awareness, we can also relate to the others, because emotions are universal in nature. Even I can relate to a emotion of another sentient being, of a sparrow. Now, we can understand and relate to the clients better, as Dr. Raut said. We can understand our team members better, because various people come with various needs and desires in the organization. Some need better pay, some need recognition, some may better challenging projects. So that is how I led my team. Another part is you can handle, I won't say handle, you can manage your bosses better. You can manage up better. So that is also a very important skill, that you can see what is important for the manager and set an expectations from the beginning. Now, this is what I'm saying, which is very relevant for today in the Newtonian paradigm. Now, from a quantum standpoint, there is no corporate ladder. We are talking about, my career has been like a zigzag. I worked in finance, technology. I went to US to do computer science, and then I graduated with philosophy and business administration. So I did what I love to do. I always lived through my heart. So my career has been like zigzag. So there is no one linear way, one way to go. If a person finds fulfillment and impact and see their presence or existence has an impact on what they do in the greater community or in their own community, there is meaning to it, then there is that moral fulfillment right there. Success is not, we define success as achievement externally. As Dr. Singh said, we need to focus on a life of significance, not necessarily anymore on a life of success. Now, the other part is, if we are moving on the quantum paradigm, then emotional intelligence is the first step to get where to evolve and involute. What does that mean? Growing from your lower self to the higher self. And that requires constant practice, constant meditation, constant awareness. And one of you mentioned to be very present, to be very highly sensitive of the situations. So those help us to evolve and ascend to the higher self as a human being. See, as I mentioned, I come from a background of old world culture. So we are very associated with our ashram. So our Gurudev could be, when somebody came, he could say what he or she was thinking. I met a monk in a forest in Thailand. He could tell what is happening in the outside world when he is meditating right there. The reason why I'm saying this, because human beings have untapped huge potential in us, but how to tap it and transmute that energy is that choice we need to individually, we have to make. Doing a lot, not necessarily doing means inquantifiable. You can do small, but it can have a huge qualitative impact. So that's how I have chosen to live my life. This is my second birth, what I say. once I started the quantum holistic, because I want to live it holistically, being the individual me who can bring balance with my family, with my professional life, community life, and with my spiritual life. I am no longer in the Newtonian world anymore. And what it brought to me, it brought a lot of meaning, a lot of fulfillment, and a lot of joy. I hope I could explain a little bit, and some of the things you can also apply, and I'm sure you are applying in some of your lives already. And this is basically our old ancient principles of the Vedas. By the way, I am also high priestess. I recite good Sanskrit shlokas too, if anybody wants to hear at some point. And from those shlokas, I actually translate things in our present day pragmatic world, how to apply it. For example, systems thinking. Systems thinking is a very small concept. And how do we apply the shlokas from the system thinking that every small part is a complete Purnamada Purnamidang Purnad Purnavadichyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevam Avashishyate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very well you said about it. I also learned the thing, the Newtonian paradigm as well as the quantum paradigm, right? And how to be the quantum holistically paradigm part, which is there. And very well you said. And when you talk about the VUCA world, which is a vibrant, unreal, crazy, and astounding, how to take care for this VUCA world. So very nicely you have been told. Thank you so much. I think we'll keep on interacting, we'll keep on learning, because with all, you also said that our ancestors, the Sanskrit, which is one of the oldest language, has given lot many things to us. So of course we can learn a lot from you. Thank you so much, Madam Rajeshwari Ghosh, being here. Now I would request on the same path, we have Madam Dr. Sonakshi Rohela. I'll say Sonakshi because again she said, don't call me Madam, right? So Dr. Sonakshi, you have been making your contribution to the field of psychology and education. And since over a decade now, almost, I was hearing about it. How do you think emotional intelligence can be included in creating a more compassionate, holistic educational model, which we all are trying to do it? Over to you.
Thank you so very much. I'm sorry to step in the line. I think there were speakers before me, but I had to leave a little early. And so thank you, Mansi and Pramodji, for giving me the opportunity to speak before. I always think in terms of questions. I hardly, give direct answers. So just an opportunity for me to ask everybody the question, when we talk about compassion, holistic, compassionate, emotionally intelligent based model, my mind always goes to the idea of how are we going to measure that. I'm always passionate and very, very, always thoughtful about the idea that when a faculty comes to me and we are in the process of hiring them, I always ask them, tell us something about yourself and tell us this, tell us that. And lots of times I just wish that there was something that could actually measure the compassion in the teacher to be a teacher. That could actually measure the emotional intelligence in a person to be able to perform a certain job role of the type that they need to be, which I fail to. Like, I don't think there is any teacher compassionate scale which I can give them and say, can you tell me, will you be able to teach my children empathy in classes? So I always struggle with this idea. But I think one of the most important questions that we need to think about and how this model can be improved upon is when we look at the four spectrums on which emotional intelligence is based. I'm sure everybody here knows that the four basic domains on which emotional intelligence is based is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. So imagine, the last being my favorite, which is relationship management, and how I wish somebody taught us that in classes, when I was growing up. Believe me, I would have had better relationships. But now these four areas, self-awareness in general, I remember when you look at school curriculums or university curriculums, they look at areas such as behavioral science, they would look at areas such as value education, and instill and club and, bring them together and say, okay, this is your self-awareness. But at most point of time, I remember, and I would often quote my mother saying this, my mother is a professor at Delhi University. And every time she would step out of the house, Pramodji, and she would drive to Delhi because we stay in Faridabad. We used to stay in Faridabad. So from Faridabad to Delhi, halfway she would think, oh, have I switched off the geyser? And throughout to her university, till while she's entered the class and while she's teaching, she would constantly tell me, I'm not sure if I have done that. So, I always used to think, Ma, you're in the middle of a class here. You're giving me a call saying, can you check geyser all the time? I cannot do that. So a very, very simple example of being, she's traveled with the idea that she's done something wrong or something wrong is going to happen to the kids all throughout 1.5 hour, journey or drive to this. So the awareness that now I'm in class and I need to switch off the home segment so that I can work with my children and probably teach them the best. Not that I'm so sorry, man, not that I'm saying that you're not a great teacher, but I wish that, your here and now in classes was much higher in comparison to, the worry that children back home would be safe. So self-awareness is very, very crucial, very difficult to practice. Most of the people say that, yes, they're very aware of themselves. I walk into a class of engineers, there are 70 students sitting there and I ask them, so, guys, what is the hobby? And they start looking here and there because, that cannot be copied by anybody. So somebody would say, oh, reading, oh, ma'am, I do this, I like this, really difficult one to practice. And so, so emotional intelligence, which basically means to people who probably have joined us or will listen to this, is just being very intelligent and rational with our emotions. And believe me, when the flood of emotions come, this is the last thing you want to do. It is the last thing you want to do. When you hear, I was listening to Dr. Raut here, saying that acknowledging that he is disturbed at the moment because he lost a colleague. That acknowledgement is emotional intelligence. Sharing with the audience beforehand that there might be an emotional vulnerability that I could go through because I have lost someone and loss is personal. So that kind of an acknowledgement, can I say that the kind of emotional, acknowledgement or appreciation of things that Dr. Raut has can be generalized to the rest of the public? Very difficult. So if you look at a curriculum which is going to educate us children to be more emotionally intelligent, we need to look at a mechanism where concepts such as relationship management, concepts such as financial management, concepts such as social, awareness or building on social cues is a very, very, very important aspect. There are times I find it so difficult, to just basically build an idea that you can't hold on to introversion, saying, I cannot extend myself, to other people in class. There are times I leave the class and I see 10 students sitting, 10 different nationalities and 10 different mobile phones that they're engaged in. Now, I feel a very strong urge to tell them that, listen, you will not get this opportunity ahead. There are your 10 different nationalities, just forget everything, ask them, what is your festival like? So what is your mom's favorite, dish? Anything. Just have a conversation. So getting people into conversation has become very difficult. Forget everything, sir. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Ask all the faculties of universities and school teachers, how many of them are comfortable with going to face-to-face classes now? And you will suddenly see that they will be at a back foot saying, oh my God, there'll be 100% occupancy. Really, students will come back because online was so much better. So if you see, I always sum up, I would always like this. People get so used to dysfunctionality. It is so amazing how, people get used to dysfunctionality and how used to the idea that even if it's an emotion that doesn't really help me, it's my emotion. So I'm going to just go through this. So I wish that there was a mechanism, if I had to have a holistic model of education and add components to it, definitely I would invest in building emotional intelligence and relationship intelligence, relationship IQ with people. I would be investing in actually creating a lot of self-awareness in students, which would be the center around which, it's like HR. People think HR don't do anything because it's the operation, sales, and marketing that does everything. But you see, HR is the core of other things. So, and HR is the most thankless job, by the way. But at the end of the day, that's the most required job as well. So I wish that our HR, which is the core of the education system, dwells a lot into insisting that children become emotionally groomed, practice a lot of self-awareness, practice a lot of social awareness, are more empathetic in nature. Now, it's very difficult if you ask me, how am I going to put empathy in classes? But believe me, I can. Yeah, there are many countries in the world who are working on how empathy should be a core, or gratitude should be a core principle. There is a field called positive psychology, I'm sure my colleagues here would say, which picked up very well, which means there must be vulnerability for people to actually acknowledge that, yes, feel like positive psychology, things like gratitude, manifestation, mindfulness have worked for people and are working for people. They have excellent results. So, so these are some of the things that will actually make a model holistic. Work on the need model. And if you look at the need model says that there is a lot of gap in the mental health sector. There is a lot of gap in people connecting with other people. And that basic humanity at the back foot. So if these are things that we are taken care of, I remember this one person, and I didn't really know how to answer him. He came to the, to one of the sessions in the morning, and he said, "Madam, I'm very depressed today." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "I was just thinking while I was driving to your clinic that, whenever I open my shop, I have a shop of, what is that? It's some merchandising. So he said, whenever I open that, I always pray to God and say, today, give me so many customers. Do you pray the same?" So, for a minute, because, he said, every person that I meet is so depressed these days that it's your prayers working well. So I said, no, and you can't really, at that point of time, you just feel that, okay, this is how people perceive the idea of mental health, that, the concept that it's not something which is, it's like we're vulturing the idea of creating or encashing the vulnerabilities of people. So, so yes, again, like I said, it's very important that an education model looks at how children are groomed over a period of time, what are their needs and requirements, what are the areas that they need to really encapsulate on, and then, self-awareness, social self-management, relationship management must be a part of the criteria so that it is holistically very functional. Thank you so much. I think that's from my side.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sonakshi. Very well you said. I've written the 4 skills which you said, that self-awareness, self-management, social management, and the relationship management, which is very, very important. And what you said is very clear, because the people who are working with the organization, the HR is a backbone. HR has to have this thing very, very important, because we also say, though sales and marketing people, they are the bread, they are the money spinners. I will not say the other way. They are the money spinners, but at the same time, without the backbone, the money spinners cannot work. Then the finance will say that we are the people who are also asking about the ROI also. So now I just resonating with the thing what you said about it, that it is like personality and behavior. 2 things are very different. I'll just take 1 minute of yours. So the personality is almost, you will all agree with me, it is like that our blood group. So you cannot change the blood group. That is the personality of the person, right? I'm sure the doctors will agree with me. And behavior is like that somebody is having the deficiency of vitamin D, then you can give the vitamin D. So this is the way the emotional intelligence is going to play a role. So the behavior can be changed with the way that we are going to enhance that the compassion, humility, humanity, keep on talking, keep on telling, keep on guiding the things. So that is what you said about the work on the need-based module, right? So that's what we call it as a behavior changes, because you cannot change the personality. That is there, it is going to happen. but how to deal with the things, it is going to make a lot of difference. So not only the school, not only the colleges and the institutes or the working place where the people are coming, it has to be taken care that how we are going to ensure and imbibe the thing, so that there has to be an happiness there, humility is there, humanity is there, and people should be coming with a lot of the compassion. So I think very well you said about it, and I'm sure the people who are listening and the people who are going to listen it, right, they will certainly, definitely will take it, and they will adopt the things to make a very happy way of working and very happy the humankind. Right. So with this now, thank you so much once again, Dr. Sonakshi. I'm going to now Dr. Faisal Sheikh from UK. Right. Very well, Dr. Faisal, how beautifully you have traveled from Pakistan to the other places and to the Bible part, which is they're putting it very well. I was listening very carefully, and I was thinking, oh my God, let me also knew something little more about from you. But anyhow, for this paucity of the time, I'll not ask that thing. I'll directly come to the question. Dr. Faisal, you have been in the field of the mental health since over 2 decades, right? What you said. And having worked with both UK National Health Services and the private sector as a consultant psychiatrist, what is your take on the importance of the mental health, right? Especially in today's scenario. How do you think emotional intelligence can play a role in normalizing conversations about the mental well being? Because mental health is everywhere, it's common, right? Either it is in India or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or in UK, US, wherever it is. And how you, as one of the very senior member who is practicing it, taking care for the people and all, what is your suggestion? What is your guidelines?
Thank you, Mr. Rajput. That's very kind of you. And like I said earlier on, I'm very pleased and humbled to be part of this esteemed panel. Um, so, very relevant question. If I was to give my take on the importance of emotional intelligence and the role it plays on well-being, many of the earlier speakers have touched on very relevant points, which I fully agree with and echo with. But if I want to bring my own perspective as a practicing psychiatrist for over 2 decades, I'd like you to I'd like to take you to the ultimate adverse outcome of disordered mental health, which is suicide. Ask ourselves the question: why do people get to that point where they contemplate or think or even sometimes end up taking their own lives? And that is the existential question that we've not been able to address, or we have different ideas about. Because when we talk about well-being, let's take it to the extreme point and then bring it back from there. So I would ask you to help us get to some idea about the gravity of that situation when someone is contemplating or having that thought in their mind to end their life. I'd like you to imagine or visualize. When all of us are old enough to have seen on television the Twin Tower attack on 9/11. I'd like you to imagine that picture where people in those in one of the burning Twin Tower buildings were jumping off that uh, from that tower high up. Um, and I think, I see suicide as very similar to that. The ball of fire that was engulfing the building from within it and from underneath um, was driving the individuals at the top of that building to make that very difficult decision. Do we get burnt with this fire? Could we get consumed with this fire, or do we make that jump? And of course, people on the ground, people like us, were thinking, oh, why are these people jumping off those buildings? But it was that level of desperation and level of that was only felt by them at that time that made them make those very irrational decisions, thinking that perhaps the pain of jumping off that high building is maybe less than the pain of being engulfed with the flames of this ball of fire. And in real life, in my work as a psychiatrist, I must admit, I have had a few of those tragic incidents where I've lost patients through suicide, and I also have a personal tragedy as well, where My father had gone missing 11 years ago under the pretext of him going to take his own life, but we've not heard anything from him. So I do have lived experience and also the professional experience of coming very close to this very, very extreme phenomenon. Um, I mean, the way I see it is that people who get to that point of even thinking about suicide do have that ball of fire within themselves, which is driving them to that level. Um, and that is the invisible elephant in the room that sometimes gets forgotten or gets ignored at the expense of focusing on the transactional. So how can we stop you from committing suicide? Or how do we reduce the risk of you ending up taking your own life by putting you in a safe room or reducing ligature points and so on. So, and I've been part of that remedial culture, and I still continue to be part of that remedial culture all along. I think mental health services all over the world, I believe, are very focused on treating and on remedial approaches rather than preventative approaches, which is where I think GMHA's philosophy is very, very pertinent, empowering the youth, looking at the preventative approaches. So, so from firefighting, which is what mental health services are focused on doing these days, by providing medication, therapy, and all this. And sometimes I think we kid ourselves because people come with those big balls of fire, which are in other medical analogies. And this may be a bit controversial to say, but I will say it because I feel I'm amongst like-minded, very intellectual people, that to get to that stage of suicide, whether that's amongst our patients, in the general population, in employees who get to that extreme level of burnout, we are no different to having a cancer having metastasized from an oncology point of view. Now, and this is how we deal with this, and we normalized it. So I think people come to us with suicidal thoughts or having actually ended up committing suicide, taking their own lives. um, I believe we are dealing with the palliative side of mental health rather than the preventative actual treatment side of it. So how do we, the question then arises, how do we then go about this? So I will say, from firefighting, which is the norm and accepted as the norm, let's go towards fire preventing. So for this ball of fire to have erupted or to have formed, there will have been small flames that would have coalesced over a course of time. And I think it should be our job to stop these flames from combining and coalescing with each other, to prevent that big ball of fire. And that big ball of fire can be, it's semantics. Big ball of fire for us, for me as a practicing clinical psychiatrist, is mental disorder. For a big ball of fire for many of our corporate colleagues, and I've heard some very inspiring talks today, is employee burnout, for example. And the big ball of fire in the general population, especially in the pandemic times, is the social isolation um, and the loneliness that is out there. Um, so I think a key task would be to prevent those big fires from combining and coalescing, because by that time we have reached that metastatic secondary stage of mental disorder, and what works after that is very palliative. We may be kidding ourselves saying, oh yeah, we'll start treating, but it's too late. And I think in order to get to those early stages, preventative approaches, stuff of educating and empowering our young, emotional intelligence in all its form, which have been described. I don't want to repeat those, but I will say the key elements of uh, emotional intelligence very much are um, this idea of being able to, I mean, all of these things that I've mentioned about self-awareness, compassion, um, I put it down to this moving from being transactional to being relational. The difference being that from being transactional to being relational, we are actually moving away from how do we fit in, And this is how most of our social media is these days. We have to fit in our neighborhoods. We have to fit in to being relational, to being safe, to being safe to who we are, and being able to express our vulnerability, and being compassionate with ourselves, and therefore being compassionate with others, and therefore create that culture, if you like. So moving from transactional to being relational is my broad definition of being of emotional intelligence, and it's creating those spaces, those conversations, as one of our previous speakers said, um, that I believe stops these flames from coalescing from each other with each other. And in my medical practice, I practice holistically and psychodynamically. So patients that I see, or they're not just patients with diagnoses who needs to get medication and go away. They are human beings with stories, and they need that space to tell their stories and for us to relate to them as human beings. For employees who are working with mental health, myself, mental health professionals, psychologists, nurses, we need to also see how these very, very traumatic, difficult stories are impacting ourselves. And to not do that, we are being extremely extremely selfish, or extremely ignorant in not realizing how emotions rub off on us and lead to burnout. So for them and for ourselves as professionals, we need to have those spaces where we are able to discuss patients in a relational way, not in a transactional way. What's the diagnosis, what's the investigation, and so on. And then thirdly, in the general population, and this is where my new startup is, Babel, I truly believe that we need to create need to create those conversations amongst each other in an abundant way. So this is where Babel's social platform comes, where the idea is to have small talk conversations, um, without having the facade of I need to fit in, I need to be so and so to be accepted. We need to move away from being accepted and validated by people, which is at the heart of what leads to these flames coalescing, to being who we are and being accepting ourselves. So I'll end my reflection at this point. Thank you, Mr. Rajpur, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faisal. Very well said about it. I just noting it down. What you said is clear. Then there is the metastasis is there. So there's nothing, all gone. Right. So we should be ensuring that there should not be a metastatic stage should come. And that is the reason that the palliative side is very, very important. Instead of that, preventive side is very important. This is the first point which you have conveyed. Second thing which you have very well conveyed, there has to be a, instead of transaction, it is really relational, which is very important thing. I think it's a new way of learning, which I think people are doing it, but not everywhere. So people should have that. And third, what you said about the conversation, the small talks. So when you have the small talks, it is going to open the entire plethora of the things, and then you will be able to take the person out from that fireball which you are talking about it, and the person can be saved, and the person can be furtherly with a compassionate way of putting the things, the person mental health can be built. Very well said, Dr. Faisal. Fantastic way of putting the things right. So thank you so much for being here. Now I would request to the, I can say, the person, the director of GMHA, the person who is behind it, the person who spent 14 years in UK and putting the things, seen lot many things, ups and downs and all, and have lot of that compassion, or you can say a lot of the passion to make the changes in the common youth mind and all. So Mansi ji, you have been at the forefront of spreading awareness on the mental well-being and the importance of emotional intelligence. What is your take on mental well-being, especially in today's time? Because you are doing a lot of work, you are helping lot many people, you are adding a lot of the strength in that, and you are not only in terms of putting your money also, you are taking the other things also to helping the poorest of the thing in the society. So we'd like to hear from you to having the taking on the emotional intelligence as a huge part of the mental well-being, because you are after lot many the colleges, we are building the thing that the NEP guidelines has to be really built up, and the youth should be empowered. The youth should be given lot many positive things in that. So over to you now, please.
Thank you, Pramod sir. Thank you to all the speakers here today. I think Everybody has added a lot of value coming from their own fields, and you've added a lot of value to emotional intelligence. We have talked about it in a truly holistic way, coming from different angles. I think when it comes to my personal work surrounding emotional intelligence, it's mainly, yes, I believe in youth empowerment, because I feel that when we specifically talk about India, um, 70% of the population is youth, so, and I think when that entire majority of population, when you think of empowering on that kind of scale, um, truly social impact can come out of it. I think education is one such platform where there is constant learning, like Sir Pramod sir, you said in the beginning that everybody here is learning. Ajit said the same thing. Dr. Faisal, everybody has said the same thing, that we are constantly learning. I think that learning platform gives us an opportunity, and with the NEP guidelines which have come in, there is a whole vast scope where holistic development can be, looked upon, can be looked at. See, previously, before the pandemic, everybody knows mental health was in its, I mean, very nascent stages in India. It was a negative. I mean, when you talk about mental, people think crazy straight away. There is no talk about mental wellness, mental well-being, so I think from there to kind of how we have progressed in, a short amount of time. So the pandemic after effects have kind of given us that scope where we have that big scope where we can enter into that phase, and fortunately, I think it has just been good timing for us that we have been able to speak to students directly at so many universities that we have done our workshops in currently. Last 3 months, we have addressed, more than 15 to 20 universities and more than 10,000 students. Such a huge platform we would not have been able to do if, the pandemic wouldn't have happened. I can assure all of you guys, I mean, about that, because it is just something that which has happened as an after effect of the pandemic. Because mental health in India, we have tried. I mean, living abroad also for so many years. Few years ago, 5 to 6 years ago, we had tried to approach universities or tried to figure out that whether, mental well-being can be incorporated into the systems. I think living with myself personally, living with anxiety and depression for a very long time in my life, I had understood that at a very, I mean, earlier stage, that these things we need to teach to our students. Suicides, 1 in 4 people die every minute throughout the world. In India as well, currently the suicidal rate amongst youth is the highest that we have ever seen. So I think all of these issues can be addressed by empowering through education. I think education is the only field where we can get all these students under one platform and where we can speak about all these initiatives. Like Dr. Sonakshi had mentioned earlier, self-awareness, relationship management, all of these things, self-reflection, empathy. I believe empathy also is very, very important. I mean, Pramod sir, you coming from the corporate background, empathetic leadership, it is such an important skill to have, because that is the only way your team is going to build. Dr. Yogesh comes from corporate background as well. So I think if you don't have empathetic leadership, the teams are going to fall apart. So even when you look at a person's entire journey, for example, starting when they are in university, when they are in their learning stages, right? And when they are trying to learn about all these technical topics, etc. Along with that, if we empower them with certain set amount of skills where they have that scope of identifying their own emotions and managing their own emotions. What is emotional intelligence is basically about identifying, managing, and controlling your own emotions. um, and that in itself, I think, can be very empowering. It stop suicides? I believe it can it create an empathetic societal environment? I believe it can. I mean, we have not been taught all these skills in universities. How I wish, like Dr. Sonakshi said earlier, how I wish I was taught about relationship management, about self-awareness, about, when you get anxious, don't panic. There are ways to deal with it. There are ways to talk about it. Peer-to-peer support. When, students are close to other students. They are not close to their parents. They are not close to their, families or whatever. I mean, yes, parents can counsel them to a certain extent coming from the family environment that they are, but they need to talk about it, right? Without communication, it's very difficult to find out what is going on inside your head. Nobody is a mind reader. So I think all those kind of supports can come in by emotional intelligence. I think emotional intelligence can be a magical revolution in the field of education, in the field of corporate cultures, and in personal life journeys as well. When I learned about emotional intelligence, and I am certified in young people and mental health from University of Cambridge, when I did my qualifications as well, when it took me through that journey of self-awareness and of how to practice it, what are the tools surrounding it, what is empathy, why is empathy a requirement? I mean, yes, I am empathetic by nature, it's a god gift, but unfortunately that is not a gift which is there in larger societies today. In India itself, I mean, when you look at the negative examples, so for example, when there was this oxygen requirement, when there was the opportunists just came along and they made so much money out of the current circumstances that we were in, which was criticized by the world throughout, right? I mean, it became a global disaster. India, in the eyes of the global world, what was the image that we carried? That, okay, you have oxygen requirement, so you're selling oxygen in black for thousands of rupees. I mean, it's a disgrace. So I think emotional intelligence can truly alter mindsets. And I think that empathy is very much required in the youth so as not to repeat these same mistakes in the future. I think we all should learn from what the current, scenarios are. And I think the NEP policies, I mean, the 5 modules that the NEP suggests holistic education policies. So all those holistic education policies suggests towards integrating emotional intelligence into the education system. Only thing, unfortunately in India, things are very much clear in black and white on paper, but putting it in practice is very difficult. It could be that it's a population challenge. It could be that because we are a 130 crore country, it's very difficult for people to implement it in all parts, of the societies. Very small example. We distributed masks to all these people, the videos that I've been putting out on LinkedIn, right? So along with food and water, first 2 days, we distributed masks also to people as a requirement, right? We taught them also that put it on, how to put it on, everything. After 2 days, when we visited the same areas, everybody was playing with the stone and the mask. Right. So, when you go out and see, these are the challenges. You just sit in your homes and you keep blaming the government, you keep blaming the administration, you keep blaming all these people, but you are not blaming the people. And I'm not saying people are to blame. We need to educate them. They are uneducated. The public is highly uneducated. So awareness is the first step which is required. Forget self-awareness also. A general awareness campaign needs to happen to bring mental well-being into the societies, to give people an understanding of what mental wellness is. So I think today's topic, which is surrounding EI and mental well-being, I think from the education point of view, I've covered all those points, but I think I would like to also give a little bit of a brief idea about implementing, how we can bring mental awareness in societies at large. And I think all the esteemed panelists here today would agree that if all of us contributed in those awareness campaigns in some way or the other, reaching out to common public that, what is mental well-being all about? Mental well-being does not mean that, if you are mad, that means you need mental wellness, sessions or mental wellness counseling or whatever. Each and every person needs counseling in life because we all go through difficult situations, right? But we all don't know how to deal with it in a positive way. Not everybody is going to sit and smile. Like Dr. Yogesh was going through a difficult time right now. He expressed it, he talked about it, and he is still, sitting, smiling through the session. How many of us can actually do that? Not a lot of us, right? Because we don't have the emotional intelligence to manage in difficult situations. And I think all these things need to be taught at ground level to larger societies, to the community. And I think the only way to reach out to community is if people like all of us, go out there and create more difference. Like Pramod sir has been, talking about leadership communication skills on so many different platforms. I think that is the only way that you can spread awareness. So these are my few words on, sir, what you asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think you have given a Midas touch, frankly speaking, because it's very, very important. And the way that it has been spoken, I have just read some of the beautiful note has come from Mr. Mukesh Kataria. Can I read it if you don't
Yes,
mind?
please, sir. Yes, please.
Okay. So what Mr. Mukesh has mentioned very well, that suggestions under the NEP guidelines 2020 try to develop 5 modules, which you said, related to AI and integrate with the universal human values, which has already been developed and implemented by AICTE. One is module 1 for class 1 to 5th student. Module 2 is for 6th to 8th class, and module 3 is for 9th to 12th standard class. Then after that, he has also mentioned that module 4 is for graduation, and module 5 is for the post-graduation implement through the online offline course module. So this was, he has posted it here. I think this is one of the very good thing which is there. But let us see how the things can be implemented. That is very, very important about it.
Yeah.
So good. I just take over this because we are doing lot many things and all. So you said about it that there is a paradigm shift is going to happen. Magical change will happen, and it is not the person who is not mentally happy. He is the only the sufferer. There are many, right? People, they don't come out from that, and at the same time, it is the responsibility as a good citizen that we should talk about the mental well-being, which is very important, right? And we should take this responsibility that we should contribute in talking about these things, so that the new generation, what we are talking about, the youth, which is 70%, the empowerment of the youth can be further built up, which is a very clear-cut message, and it is very pious message which has been given here, right, on this particular platform. And I'm sure the way 15, 20 universities has come, 10,000 students they are able to have, and the roadmap is already clear with us that yes, we are going to include so many universities and so many of the students, so that they should start learning with this. I'm sure the small steps, like that, we always say the journey of 100 miles start with the very first step, and the journey is started. Journey is really started, and it is showing us results also. There is always a ray of light is there in the black tunnel which was there, which was not there thanks to the pandemic, which the way you have taken and some other people of the group has taken and putting it on the daily basis. So with this, I really thank you for giving me this opportunity to moderate the session with such eminent personalities from different part of the world, right? And talking with them, knowing with them, asking with them, learning with them, right? So again, I added that learning part in the knowledge bank. So again, it has little increased, little more, right? With this, now I would request Dr. Babita ma'am, who is the director of AICTE Abdul Kalam University. Please tell something about yourself, ma'am, and I request you to have your vote of thanks to the entire group who is seeing here, the faculties who is seeing here. Thank you so much. Over to Babita ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Rajput. Again, I have got this opportunity to compile the session and then give the word of thanks this time also, and just give me my small introduction that I am a Dr. Babita Ji Kataria, working with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University as a director of University Industry Interface Cell, handling 750 colleges around me, helping them to get placed, helping them to just take care of their emotional intelligence when they are not able to got the opportunity to get hired from a company like Accenture. So so this is a introduction I really wanted to give. And also the Cadila person will not come to hire the people of pharmacy. So this is a very bad time when the students are come to me and they say that the pharma company is not coming to our place to hire them. So there I play a very small role to help the students to get out of that negative feeling. And I tell them that there is a very big way and big road to walk, and you can walk step by step and you can reach to your goal. So because this is a panel of emotional intelligence, so I will also start little bit, and then I'll go to my main vote of thanks. So I'll also say some few lines about EI, that the use of emotional intelligence day to day life is considered really to assist in positive achievements in life success, in developing social skills, enhancing practical thinking and creativity. So it will not only help to have academic success, however, it helps to understand how to manage and adjust professionally and personally, as I told you about the way the students are coming to on my seat to ask how to what to do. So the holistic approach is required actually to inculcate emotional intelligence as well as the traditional skills. If this approach is applied, it will help in advancing the physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and mental well-being, which I think during this complete platform, I understood that really the mental well-being is required. And after listening to all my eminent speakers today, I personally feel that everyone is thinking in the same direction, started working towards it. The point of Dr. Ajit, I was just going through and listening very nicely because because I'm also a medical professional. So he was talking about heart failure and everything. So I was just listening what is there. And the remark I really found very nice, that we should follow a disciplined life, and we should follow 3 colors. We should follow 20 to 30 minutes of yoga and meditation. And then finally comes to Dr. Yogesh about, he was talking about EQ is above IQ, and people can learn IQ, but EQ has to be, I think it has to be inculcated from the childhood itself, because we cannot teach EQ. It has to be understood really. And then I was going through Miss Rajeshri Ghosh, what she was telling, and now about the view, like practice and then pitch, the soul, mind, and heart meditation to be done in the holistic view. Oh wow, it was really good, and I was feeling very, very happy to learn that yes, there are so many people who are surrounding me where I can do the learning, which is promotes the important word of learning. I also wanted to learn. And Dr. Faisal Sheikh has really given a very sensitive example of big firewall, big ball of fire, which he has compared in form of where we can talk about, for example, if I'm talking about my students, so when they are not getting an opportunity, then again, this is a big ball of fire where I can relate when he was talking about the people jumping from the building and etc. And Dr. Sonakshi Rohela's social relationship and communication skill has a real effect on one's bringing, and it helps to grow as a human. So she talked about starting from child, because she's a teacher. So she understands that where we can work out. We can work out from childhood till their professional life. And finally, our Miss Mansi, she talks about holistic studies always. And she wanted to include, and she will definitely include EI with traditional skills, that I know. So this is the, I understood about this platform and people talking about. So now with this, we come to an end, and I, on behalf of the GMHA team, founder of CEO, Ms. Mansi Dholakia, pay my sincere thanks to all the eminent speakers, Dr. Ajit Singh, CEO and co-founder of Climate Research Solutions, Dr. Yogesh Raut, mindset coach, innovation coach at Accenture, my Ms. Rajeshwari Ghosh, founder at Quantum Holistic, Dr. Faisal Sheikh, founder at Babel Consultant Psychiatrist at NHS UK, Dr. Sonakshi Rohela, Associate Registrar at University Dubai, for accepting the invitation and sharing their knowledge on the digital platform. All the knowledge and shared has triggered the thinking process of everyone, all the participants, and I also. And no one can now forget to pay our sincere thanks to Ms. Mansi Dholakia, CEO and founder of GMHA USA, for creating such a thoughtful session and sharing her words of wisdom. And Ms. Sonali, the psychologist, for introducing all the speakers. I'd like to thank Ms. Gayatri, country head of GMHA, for gracing the event with a welcome note. And I also pay my regards and thanks to our moderator, Mr. Pramod Rajput, for moderating the session so well, which owns a great value. I need to thank the technical team behind the show, and especially to Mr. Prem for holding a flawless session. And we never forget to pay sincere thanks to all of them who are patiently listening to us. As I had such a great learning, I hope they also had the same learning from the knowledge shared today on the online platform. Once again, thank you all for such a beautiful, enriched session. Thank you all. Thank you so much for making me learn so many things today. Thank you. Thank you. So
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And yes, thank you to all the speakers again. And hopefully we will all keep in touch and keep having these awareness sessions through different mediums. And, I'm fed up of having these Zoom sessions. I really hope that we can all meet someday and hold this in public with, an auditorium filled with 500 people. I'm just dying to do that now. So thank you all very much.
We also want to be there, Miss Mansi.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.